this video I'm going to walk you through how to do a BMS replacement on a Bamboo GTR Series 2 battery. Pretty straightforward process. We just need to remove the battery from the battery case and we can access the BMS to replace it. So we start by removing the battery from the board. So we've got this one off. Flip it over to expose the screws that hold the battery case lid on, and we're going to remove those screws. Then we can take this lid off and pull the battery out. We use a 1/8 Allen key. We're also going to need a Phillips head screwdriver for removing the BMS. So we'll start by removing those surrounding screws. Alrighty, now we've got those screws out, we can just lift the battery case lid off. Pop that one to the side. Now we've got a dust seal in here as well. We want to remove that one. Now to remove the battery PCB from the case, we'll need to disconnect the power switch plug and also the charge port plug. So to do that, we want to lift the rear end of the PCB. The power switch plug is connected straight to the PCB of the battery. There is a little tab that you need to depress, and that one will slip out. And then we've got access to the charge connector plug here as well. That one's off. So then we can just lift the battery PCB up out of the case, pop your case to the side. So BMS is attached to the battery PCB by 4 screws. We just need to remove those ones using our Phillips head screwdriver. Once you've got those 4 screws removed, we can simply lift the BMS up off the battery PCB. Now be careful when you're doing this, you want to keep the BMS nice and flat so as to not bend any of the pins that run from it down into the battery PCB. So holding both ends, give it a wiggle to release it. Now we can go ahead and replace that BMS and pop our new one on. There's not a lot to indicate which way this one goes, but we want to line up the header pins with the receiving end on the battery PCB. And as we install it, we want to go straight down and make sure everything's aligned before you fully push it home. So just have a look to make sure all your pins are aligned. That looks all good. And then just give it a firm press down. Whilst holding it there, reinstall those 4 screws. Make sure these screws are nice and secure. Okay, so we've got the BMS back onto the battery PCB. So now we can put it all back into the case. So in the reverse order from how we removed it, start by placing the battery PCB into the case, leaving the rear end lifted so you can access the connections. It's easiest if you connect the charge port connector first, making sure it's lined up the correct way. And then connecting the power switch. Now as you seat it back in, we want to make sure this little rubber grommet from the power outlet is lined up with the battery case and slips into it. Now there is 2 ribs. If you try and put it onto the wrong one, it's not going to fit. So it needs to go into the rib closest to the battery PCB, so inbound, and then it'll slip in nicely. Making sure none of the wires are contacting anything as you push it back in. That's all placed back into the case. Next step is to put your dust seal back in. Can only go one way. Lining it up and just pressing on each of the screw holes sort of positions it. So that all lines up and sits into that channel nicely, and will be sandwiched once we put this lid back on. So we'll take our lid, position that one back on top, and then reinstall these screws to fasten it to the battery case. Okay, so we've got those lid screws all tightened up. Just want to take a quick look around the edging to make sure the seal's all lined up as it should be. You may see a little bit of flex toward the rear end. That'll be sandwiched together when you screw the battery back onto the deck. That's how you replace a BMS on a Series 2 Bamboo GTR battery.